What's going on? This is Zach Adelstein here with DFS Army, and today I'm here with Aaron Friedman, and we're going to be going over the Week 1 main slate on DraftKings and go over a few things on FanDuel as well. Had a really good Week 1. Few decent winners over at DFS Army, some good scores, some really good games. I think we learned a lot in Week 1 as well. It was an interesting week, some really fun games. And yeah, I'm excited for Week 2. How'd it go with you, Aaron?
Good. It was just good to have a full slate of football, and this week I'm glad we don't have to deal with the FCS, so that's pretty awesome too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's always interesting and fun. But yeah, why don't we jump right in here? So yeah, we're gonna start. Just go across the board, and let's start with South Carolina at Arkansas. Arkansas is favored here by 8.5 to 53.5 total. Um, Start at quarterback. KJ Jefferson's a little expensive for me here. He's kind of in no man's land. Had a really good week last week. Had to run it 18 times, but I don't think he's going to do that this week against a really good South Carolina front seven. They really have some run stuffers there, so it's not the best spot for him. I do think they're going to try to feed their running backs here, though, which leads me to Raheem Sanders, who I think is a decent play as well. He's a little expensive for me, but if Dominic Johnson, who missed last week, is still out, I don't mind it. Last week, Sanders had 20 carries, and the next highest running back had 3. KJ Jefferson did have 18, so he was up there as well. But if Sanders is going to be a workhorse here, I don't mind it at that price. I do think that this is a much tougher defense, though, for them than Cincinnati is this year. But yeah, if Johnson's in, I'm kind of off of that totally at that price. The other kind of running back play, kind of in GPPs that's decent, is Lloyd. Last week he jumped in, and I saw Marshawn Lloyd come up when Beal Smith was ruled out. Plugged him in, got a few touchdowns, got a receiving and a rushing touchdown. Was a decent play last week. Beal Smith is supposed to be back, so I'm really not going there this week. I don't think he is a value play though, and there aren't a lot of value plays at running back that I love this week, so it is something I want to keep an eye on. Over at wide receiver, there's not a ton there that I really loved either. Hazel was too expensive for what he was last week. It didn't look like he was a first read. Where I do really want to look is at Trey Knox. Trey Knox had a really nice week 1, had 2 touchdowns. I think he had 7 targets last week and really looked like someone that had a connection with KJ Jefferson. And he's the guy that's been there for a while. He's the old wide receiver now. And at 4,100, he's just way too cheap for me. What about you, Aaron? What do you see on this game?
Yeah, quarterback I'm the same way. It's nothing I love. Running back, I do like Sanders. I don't love the price, but he's definitely in my player pool. And then at receiver, I do like Knox also. I like I'm pulling up Wells's player card, but I liked him. I'm pretty high on him generally.
Yeah, I
Looks
saw he
like
had 7 receptions last week. He had a decent week.
yeah.
It was a weird game for South Carolina last week.
So he's somebody I have my eye on, but Knox is definitely the best play. I like how they use him this year.
Yeah,
Because he was a receiver in the past, but now they're using him more as a tight end.
definitely. And he's kind of been that hybrid role throughout his career. But yeah, let's keep on moving. Go over to Missouri at Kansas State. It's an interesting game. It's kind of, I think, going to be one of the lower owned games on the slate. Not too exciting, but decent total, decent spread. Kansas State's favored here by 7.5, and it's got a 57 total. Starting at quarterbacks, I kind of want to see Adrian Martinez do something before I roster him, especially at this price. There's some really good value on this slate, and he didn't do much last week in a FCS matchup, and just kind of want to see it before I go there. Brady Cook didn't have to do too much, and I do think he can. I think there's upside there. Had 23.1 DK points last week. Kansas State is a good defense, so I do want to be careful there. But this is a nice game script for him. It's not terrible. And at 5,800, he's one of the value quarterbacks that's going to be in my player pool for sure. Going over to running back, Deuce Vaughn. I don't care what his price is. He's going to be in my player pool. He can
That's a
have
nice
10 targets,
price.
15 targets. Yeah. I mean, he's one of those guys that you just have to put there and you let him go. It'll be interesting for me to see how he can work with Adrian Martinez. I do think he could hamper him a little bit, but he's somebody I'm going to have there until I see otherwise, until I see a reason not to. I don't really want to get on the they kind of went running back by committee, so just kind of want to wait there. Pete had a good game, but Kansas State is a good run defense as well. Going over to wide receiver, there's a few plays I want to look at here for Mizzou. Burden is the number one wide receiver. Last week, he came out and they got him. I think he had 4 targets, had 3 receptions and 3 runs, rushing touchdown and a receiving touchdown. He's going to be all over the field. They're going to do everything they can to get him the ball. And I wish they wouldn't price him up so quickly, but he is someone I want to keep an eye on. Lovett had a good game too last week. Led the team with 6 receptions, I think, on 7 targets. Did get a run as well. If they're going to pepper him and they're going to get him a ton of targets, and I do think this is a game they might have to air it out a little bit more, then Lovett's a guy that's a nice mid-price guy, wide receiver for this slate that I think I'll keep an eye on. What are you looking at here?
Yeah, I agree on the quarterbacks. Cook is really – I like that price on DraftKings because on FanDuel he's $9K. So,
Yeah.
but at 5,800, he's definitely somebody I'll have my eye on. Running back, you referenced the timeshare. So Schrader, I have in my notes, he had 17 rush attempts, but 6 players total had at least 4 rushing attempts.
Mm-hmm.
So I still think it's a good play. It's like 4K is pretty fair. It's not
he's the value. I mean, he's the value play on this slate at running back. There's not a lot of value down there.
Yeah. So I like him still. Obviously Deuce, I like the price a lot. And then at receiver, the Burden price is fair. So last week he was 6,700. So
yeah,
I still think it's fair. And definitely somebody I'm gonna have a good amount. But I'm not looking at the K-State receivers at all.
No, I don't trust Adrian Martinez to throw the ball still.
Yeah.
All right, this is one game that I'm actually really excited about this week, which just feels so weird because when this was scheduled, both of these teams were absolutely awful. But Wake Forest and Vandy. Vandy's looked decent. That week 1, they didn't look very good week 2 against Elon at all. But they do have some places I want to go. Wake Forest, Sam Hartman's back this week. Was cleared to play. Said he's going to start. That's somewhere I'm really mixed on. I kind of want to see what happens in warm-ups, keep an eye on him, keep reading throughout the week. He is a guy that can go for 450 and 5 touchdowns, but he hasn't really practiced with the team since like 3 or 4 weeks before the season started, and he had a procedure. They did say he was throwing when he was out, but it's timing, it's the playbook, which he should know, but it's just all of that, which kind of concerns me. That being said, I don't think you'll ever see Sam Hartman in AK again. So it's a give and take. So he's definitely in play here. For me, it's more an argument of, do I want him in GPPs or do I feel comfortable with him in cash? And that's my internal argument. One play I love in all formats is Mike Wright. He had a great game, week 1 against Hawaii. Last week against Elon, he had a decent game. He is this offense. He's going to do everything. This game has a 66 total with Vandy being, with Wake Forest being 13-point favorites. So there's going to be points in this game, and he'll air it out when he needs to. But he'll use his legs. He'll do everything in a 5,400. He's kind of a free square for me. Probably be in my cash lineup. Definitely going to have shares of him in GPPs. And he just helps make everything work with how pricing is this week. Going over to running backs, I'm not touching any of them on either team. I don't like the way Wake Forest runs their running backs, and they kind of wishy-washy of who's going to do which week. They've constantly done that. So I kind of want to get a few weeks under my belt before I go there, and I don't think you need to at their prices. They have ridiculous prices for Wake Forest running backs. Ray Davis, if you really want to go there, had a good week 1, did not have a good week 2 against Elon, and I'd much rather play Wright and trust his legs here. Receivers, a place I really do want to hit here. A.T. Perry is one of the cheapest you'll ever see him. He didn't have a great week last week, but he gets his starting quarterback back, and he could go off here. 20, 25 DraftKings points at 6,900 is a great price. Green was our leading target getter, Donovan Green. Last week he had 7 targets, I believe. I kind of want to see if he's the true number 2 here, or if they're going to get more and more involved, or someone else. It'll be a little bit different, I think, with Hartman back, but just want to keep an eye on that. Will Shepherd is someone I'm going to keep an eye on too, just to have pieces of in different lineups, because I do want pieces of this game in different lineups, because I do think this is a game that could definitely shoot out if Vandy can keep up with Wake Forest. And so, yeah, just those are the kind of pieces where I'm at. What about you, Aaron? What are you thinking?
Yeah, this is definitely the time to play Mike Wright at quarterback, because once you get in that SEC schedule, you're going to want no part of him. So this is the week to play him and look back on week 2 and remember how well you did.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with Hartman. It's hard to say, because what he had, the blood clots in the arm, it just doesn't. It's so rare that it's hard to say, oh, this will really affect him or not. So I agree. It's maybe you want to share because he's going to be so much more expensive the rest of the way, but I also wish we'd seen him more. Running back, I agree with you. Rocco Griffin is back he missed last week, and now he's back, so that makes the Vandy running back situation a bit more crowded. And then wide receiver, yeah, I'm excited about Donovan Green. He's really cheap on FanDuel. And yeah, Perry's a stud. I do like Shepard a lot on the other side. And then Williams, maybe for Wake Forest, maybe in a very deep GPP. He's a good player, but probably just focusing on the top 4 guys on this screen: Perry, Green, Marin, and Shepard.
Yeah, I like that. It's one of those games where I think a lot of the production is going to be very, very centralized, and McGowan can get some targets here and there, but I think that they're going to rely a lot more on Wright's legs here than not. All right, moving on to the game that's going to hurt me a lot, but I think will be decent for DFS is Bama against Texas. Starting at quarterback, Bryce Young, I think he's a little too expensive. He obviously has huge upside. I don't think they're going to let him run like they did last week. I think they were trying to hide their playbook. Let him run a little bit, do some things, get in, get out, move on. But I think he's always in play if you want to go there. I'm not touching Quinn Ewers here. Made some bad decisions last week. I watched the game. Was on Longhorn Network, so really hard to watch with other games on. Made some bad decisions. Made some great throws. Made some throws that very, very few people can make. But also made some really bad decisions. This is going to be really tough for him coming into this environment, especially with game day there, with Fox, big noon kickoff, with all of the media and everything he's going to have to deal with. I just don't even want to touch it, especially with Mike Wright being so cheap. There's no reason I think you need to. Going over to running back is a very interesting week for me here. Gibbs, I am a little bearish on right now. I want to see how they're going to use this running game. I think they like their depth a little bit more than some people think, especially the pricing at DraftKings. I don't know if Gibbs is going to be a 20 running back here every week, and he's priced like he is. So I'm a little bit bearish there. Bijan, I love. I think you can play him any slate. If there's any slate I don't like him, it's this. That front seven of Bama is just too much. Texas is starting Both of their tackles are true freshmen. They have, I think, 3 freshmen on the line. They're rotating in some freshmen. I think this running game is going to eat them alive. It would interest me if they, let him chip and then moved him out for some screens. I could see that happening. But that being said, it's going to be hard for me to get much of him in at that price with the other things I like around there. The other kind of pump play that I've been looking at is McClellan. Jace is the backup running back. And if they do go to that committee, I think they're going to a little bit more. I don't think it's going to be a 50-50 committee. I think it'd be more like a 60-40 or 60-30-10. But I think McClellan could have, break a few big runs here, get in the end zone. And at 4K is a really cheap play and a way to diversify on this offense. Going over to wide receiver, another interesting thing, but I think the main places I want to attack, Burton is the lead guy. He's the known guy. That's why he's priced like he is. He got 8 targets last week, led the team. Holden is kind of where I think I'm going to get my Alabama wide receiver stakes. He had 7 targets last week. I think they have similar upside, and you're getting 1,300 savings. Worthy, I don't know. Same thing. I don't trust Stewart, so I don't know if I trust Worthy. And their connection just looked off last week. Some targets that just weren't close. Some things that just weren't there. He has immense upside, but they're going to have to figure something out this week to get him involved. The last play I'm going, and I'll have to search for it because it's down in the 3K, is there we go. Tavian Sanders. He is a former 5-star recruit, one of the top athletes, I believe, was his recruited position, but he's playing tight end for Texas. And he just went off last weekend. Him and Ewers look like they sit there after practice and just throw balls with each other all day. Looked really good. Last week I had his touchdown, led the team in targets, went 6 for 85 with a touchdown. And they pulled the offense after the first possession in the second half. Score didn't look that way, but they had a defensive score, had a punt block score. So they pulled them early, which I hated. I thought this team needed more work together for sure. But, he's somebody I do think he could be very high owned. But at 3K, he's one of the guys you can plug in. If he gets you 12 points, you're living large there. And that's not a bad way to fit in a lot into your lineup. What are you thinking of this from a much less biased point of view?
Yeah, I think I can make a case for Bryce Young just because a lot of the pricing is really soft. So I can't see Bryce Young being more than 10% owned, just with all the value period. So I kind of like that because I'm sure he's going to be way more popular on most slates. I agree with you. No on the Texas passing game. And then running back, I don't know. I need to see more from Bama. I thought Gibbs would have a bigger role too, but it's just going to be hard with them being huge favorites in every game. Wide receiver, I know Latu's back. That may be a flyer. I was surprised to see Harrell actually not do anything. This guy was the speedster coming in from Louisville, and I thought he'd have a bigger role here. So, I know it's only one game, but I don't know. Maybe a cheap stack with Young makes sense, but I don't love this game.
No, I get it. I think everything that needs to be priced up. That Sanders play is a punt play that I think you can play. If you want to take some, if you're gonna 150 max and you want to take some pieces of it. So I do think this is a game. The only way that Texas stays in this game is if they score 35 points. And if you look at it that way, and if you think Texas is going to stay in this game, then you have pieces of yours or Bijan or Worthy or Whittington. If you trust the spread, which I do, I actually would take Bama on this personally if I was betting it. But I think it's a lot harder to get any pieces outside of Bryce Young just because of the way they spread their passing game outside of Holden and Burton to me. And that running game, I just want to figure out what they're doing. All right, let's go to Southern Miss at Miami. This is a little bit less of a exciting game. The total here is 54.5 in Miami. It's favored by 25.5. I'm just completely fading Southern Miss here. They don't have anything I really love. I mean, the only player that Frank Gore Jr. is there, and last year played some quarterback and does the Wildcat thing, and it's too much against a decent defense, pretty good defense, I think, in Miami this year. Quarterback, I like Van Dyke. He didn't have to do much week one. They didn't make Tyler Van Dyke do much week one. Last year, it was the last 5 games that he played. He got hurt later in the season. Last 5 games he played, he had at least 3 touchdown passes in each of those. He's sitting here at 6,400. He's a really nice price. Nice lower mid-priced quarterback here. Running back's interesting for me. Paris started last week. Knight's supposed to be the split back here, but he was held out with a soft tissue injury and is supposed to be back this week. It's something you want to watch. But if they're going to split this up, and Southern Miss is not a good run defense, I am very happy to plug in Knight and a mid-price guy here in GPPs and, get him 12, 14 or more carries. They ran the ball a lot last week, and love to get that as a value play that I think will be under-owned because he has no score there, so it looks like he doesn't play. Over at wide receiver, I don't love their wide receiver situation right now. No one had more than 5 targets, which was Restrepo, and outside of him, no one had more than 3. He's way too expensive for me at his 5 targets. Had, I think, 4 catches for 101 yards and a touchdown last week, so got up there. But until we figure out who's going to be catching passes regularly, but Will Mallory would get a little bit more. I'm just going to kind of fade that and just stick with, Van Dyke naked up at the top as a quarterback. What are you thinking here?
Yeah, I don't like a lot. Gore's kind of interesting just because they already had to use him at quarterback because you see Keys here is questionable. Yeah. So otherwise kind of a gross game. I just want to keep seeing how Van Dyke and the offense evolves. Mallory's a guy I like in fantasy generally, so I don't think I'm going to get to him this week. I'll probably play him more when ACC season kicks in, but not a lot of interest for me.
No, I get it. There's enough games on here with 14 that you can overlook at a lot of the games and be fine. Yeah. Another game here that is, decent, I think, very one-sided, but could be decent, is Ohio at Penn State. Penn State's favored by 25 with a 54-point total. Clifford didn't look great to me last week until the last half of the fourth quarter. He does have upside. We've seen his upside in different weeks. I don't know if this is the place to do it. I do think he's a decent GPP play, just because I don't think a lot of people think that like I do. But he's someone I'm not going to get to in cash and won't have a ton of shares of. I'm going to fade this running game until I figure it out. I liked Singleton last week, and he was really cheap. They really bumped him up this week, and he and Lee had the same amount of carries. I know Katron Allen had a few carries as well last week. I think it was 8. It might have been 8, and 8, or 8, 9, and 9. It was 8, 9, and 9. So seems like a true committee right now. So if that continues, I'm just going to fade him all year because there's no one. It's not a good enough running game to be doing that with. Wide receivers where I really like to look at this game. Washington had 4 targets last week. I kind of want to wait and see what they do with him. He's in the same spot he was last year and kind of getting similar targets. Whereas Tinsley had 11 targets last week, led the team, had a great game, had some nice gains, had a touchdown. And he's a nice mid-price guy I like. And also Lambert Smith. Lambert Smith had 10 targets last week. Those are your 2 outside guys that are going to be out there a lot. I know Strange got some targets as well. But that's where I'm kind of focused on is these 2 in different lineups. Like I said, probably won't get to Clifford a ton. But those are 2 places I really want to look. What about you? What are you thinking with Penn State here?
Yeah, I agree. I want to watch the receivers, or sorry, watch the running backs just to see how it continues to evolve and how they give the freshmen. The freshmen have less pressure now that they're at home and it's not a road game at Purdue. I'm excited. I won't play the running backs. I agree with you there. I do like the Clifford call in GPP just because the pricing's weird with all the value, and I love Tinsley.
Yeah.
I love Tinsley and Lambert Smith also, like you do. And then, yeah, same, just fading the Ohio side.
Yeah, there's not much there at all.
I think if you're playing like prize picks, you could take the Ohio unders for a lot of them.
Yeah, for sure. All right. And another game where we're going to fade a team, or I'm going to fade a team. I'm pretty sure you are too, is this Marshall Notre Dame game. Notre Dame is favored by 20.5 points. The total's 51. There's not a lot there for Marshall. I am interested in Buckner here. I think he's going to be way under owned. He actually looked really good for a drive last week and then disappeared for 3.5 quarters. But he's cheap here. And he's someone I think in GPPs you can put in there and will be 10% owned with all of the other names on this slate under value. You have people that are under him. You have people that are around him, which are, bigger names. And I think you could go for 20, 25 points here easy against the Marshall team. They have a team total over 35 here. And get you some nice value at, a 6K. I'm fading the running backs here until I figure out what they're doing. Same kind of thing. I don't think they know what they're doing either. Then at wide receiver, I'm not playing a real wide receiver here. The one place I am going on this team and going to have a ton of is Michael Mayer. He's sitting here at 3.9K. I think he had 7 of his 8.2 points in the first drive last week. Really good first drive, and then the whole passing game disappeared. He is way too cheap. He had 8 targets last week. I think the next highest receiver had 4. They're going to use him. They're going to get him involved. He's going to be their primary offensive weapon this year. And under 4K, I'm just going to move him in kind of as a free space in a lot of the lineups and move on from there. So my main 2 plays here are Buckner and Mayer. What about you?
Yeah. I don't even know how to pronounce the fullback's name for Notre Dame. Esteem.
Yeah, Estime. I think it's Roderick Estime. I could be wrong.
I thought he had a bigger score. I feel like he was scoring all the touchdowns for them, but I guess it was just one.
Yeah, they only got one last week.
Oh yeah, they only got one touchdown. So yeah, I thought Tyree would have a more prominent role. So, but it's very crowded with Tyree, Diggs, and Esteem. So I agree. Just the passing game, Buckner is interesting, and then yeah, Mayer is somebody you're going to hear a lot on Sundays. So I like him a lot, and they still have questions on their receiving core, and Mayer's the sure thing here in terms of their receivers.
Yeah, I mean, I think there could be a receiver that goes off here. But even last year in these games that they blew teams out, they didn't really have many receivers go off. This is, I think, one of the best games of the week for DFS purposes on the slate. Tennessee, we always are attacking. Pittsburgh held their own and won that game against West Virginia and looked good for DFS purposes. I'm going to jump in here. Hooker is too cheap for me on this slate. I think his kind of minimum in any slate this year should be around 9,000. And he's sitting here at 7,800. I think 30 points is kind of his median score. He has 40-point upside. And I think he'll get 30 points at least half the times you play him. He's safe in cash, safe in GPPs. He's just a great play here at a great price for him. Slovis was decent last week. He didn't throw it as much as I anticipated, but he still got 300 yards, got a touchdown, had some really big plays. And I kind of am okay game stacking this a little bit for some GPP lineups. kind of really interests me a lot, actually. I want to watch on Rodney Hammond. He got hurt at the end of the game last week, but he did have 16 carries. At 5,900, it's a spot if he's going to be their primary back, I'm not afraid to go there a little bit in GPP lineups. Just get that piece of this game. I kind of want to see what Wright and Small are going to do. They both had 13 carries last week. They're going to make that a true committee. And then you're going to have Hooker running the ball as well. Just kind of going to fade that. I think Small has a ton of upside. Wright has a decent amount of upside. He just doesn't do it for me. I don't think he has it quite as much. But I think this week there's enough, where I'm at on this game, I do think it could be a gunslinging kind of back and forth game. So I'm kind of going to avoid that spot for now. I do think if you wanted to, you could play one of them as a pivot in some lineups if you were multi-entering, but I would not do that if you're playing one lineup. And then over at wide receiver, it's kind of spread out for Tennessee. Tillman was at the top, had a ton of upside. I think he only had he had 6 or 7 receptions, didn't get in the end zone though, but I mean, he has a ton of upside. Mumpfield led the team for Pitt with I believe 6 or 7 targets. And same thing, didn't have a huge day, but the upside is there. Had 5 receptions for 71 yards. They're both players. They're kind of the more expensive wide receivers I'm looking at on this slate. There are some decent lower price guys. Brew McCoy had 5 targets. I think Hyatt had 5 targets. Tennessee, it's kind of hard, or on Pittsburgh, it's kind of hard to get down into the weeds there just because they don't throw it quite as much. They only had 24 passes last week. But I do want a lot of pieces of this game and a lot of lineups. Where are you going here?
I agree. I love Hooker. I'm probably going to write him up on FanDuel as one of my favorite quarterbacks. Quarterbacks really loaded on this slate on DraftKings. So I think you'll get him at a good percentage. Slovis, I can see mostly just for game stacks. I don't know if I'll roll him out if you're only playing a few lineups, but if you're doing a game stack, I like Slovis a lot. And then running back, that's a big area to watch. Check Hammond's status because he was really effective for Pitt last week. And then at receiver, I agree. I'm always going to be interested in Mumfield. Hyatt, I like a lot. On FanDuel, he's really cheap over there, and he's 5,300 on FanDuel. And Tillman, he didn't score last week, and that broke a game of 7 consecutive touchdowns. So I think he's gonna score here, and I like. On DraftKings, I'd probably pair Hooker with him because he's going to score sooner or later. And Wayne's good too, but expensive. And then Bartholomew is a punt. If you're just looking for a cheap random tight end to score, he's decent, but yeah, kind of boomer bust with him.
Yeah, I like that for sure. Moving on to Appalachian State at Texas A&M. This game confused me because Appalachian State's defense looked great for a while, and then looked awful, and then looked decent, and then looked atrocious. So did North Carolina's. I think the game kind of took a life of itself because I do think Appalachian State still has a decent defense. That being said, I don't think they're going to keep A&M from scoring. I think they might keep them from scoring 50. But I think the spread's a decent indicator. It's got a total of 52.5 with A&M having being 18.5 point favorites. Haynes King for me here. I don't love his price here. I think on FanDuel he's a little cheaper this week. I saw, but there's you can save $900 and go down to a Hooker. You can. There's so many other ways to go on this slate that I don't think I'm going to have a ton of him. Just because watching that game, he really struggled in the first half. Then there was a huge lightning delay. He came back out. He was really effective after that. But this Appalachian State team is not a half-built FCS team, which is just waiting to move to FBS. This is going to be a decent defense and some older guys. that's kind of where I'm at there. Chase Bryce, if you do think that this is going to be another shootout, stack it. He's cheap enough where you can stack them together if you're anticipating that kind of game. I'm not, and I don't love generally this passing game, and I think the A&M secondary is better than UNC secondary. That being said, they're a lot younger than UNC secondary, so there will be some gaps. So there will be some places for App State to exploit. A lot of these guys are freshmen, redshirt freshmen. And this will be their first game against an FBS opponent. Going over to running back, one thing that interests me, I wouldn't do it for cash, but Devin Achane had a really bad game last week. Didn't look good. The whole running game kind of couldn't get in sync. Like a lot of young players again, I still think he has great upside. He's expensive for what he did last week, but I think everyone was very heavy on him last week, and he let them down, and they're not going to play him this week. And now you could pivot to him, and he might be 10% owned or less here. In a game that last week Appalachian State gave up like 250 rushing yards. Again, I'm not expecting that crazy kind of game, but I do think on the ground you got a guy like this at low ownership. He's something that you could pivot to and really help your lineup get up the board. I don't like generally to play the game between Peoples and Noel. They're both very similar with upside. Noel had the big carries last week. Peoples had them last season. I do think this A&M run game is run defense is very good defense as well. So I'm kind of fading that for the most part. Peoples is a little bit cheaper, so I might have some pieces of him for value. But going over to wide receiver, Nye Smith had a great game. Looked really good, probably his best game of his career. They used him totally different than they did last year. I do think that's definitely a ceiling game for him. I don't see him as being 30-point regularly producer, but if he could get 15 to 20 regularly, I think he's a decent play. That being said, he's a little expensive for me. I think wide receiver, you're going to have to go cheaper a lot of places to make these lineups work with the way running back is structured. But I do think he is in play here. Evan Stewart, I definitely am interested in as well. He's still sitting down here at 5,200. He was 4,800 last week, came up a little bit, had 9 targets. They're trying to get him involved. They targeted him deep a couple times, just overthrew him. They can get on the same page. He is a guy that I think could really go off and will go off 1 week soon. If you want to go and you're interested in that stack with Bryce, Davis had led the team with 7 targets last week, had a good game. They got him involved all over. They didn't really have a set depth chart, so it was hard to figure out what they wanted to do at receiver. There were a lot of ors. But I think this is a guy at 3,800. He's a decent pump play if you think this game is going to be high scoring. What are your thoughts on this, Aaron?
Yeah, the Haynes King pricing is interesting. I just wrote on my sheet that he's essentially QB2 in terms of pricing if you remove the backups. But on FanDuel, he's like QB13.
Yeah.
So I think FanDuel's a great way. One thing I like about the different sites is you can get exposure to different players on different sites where it makes sense to roster them. And so King is going to be someone I'm heavily invested in on FanDuel just because I don't know if App State can fix their issues in less than a week. Now they're going on the road to play a top, 5-6 team in the country. So I think it's asking a lot of the App State defense to suddenly become the 85 Bears. So yeah. I like App State, I like the Texas A&M passing game a lot. I know Smith isn't going to be cheap here, so I like the Stewart call you had.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think you could run King naked just because he's going to spread it out a little bit.
I agree with that, for sure. All right, moving along to Washington State, going over to Wisconsin. These next 2 games have awful totals. There's a 49-point total with Wisconsin being 17-point favorites. I'm fading Wazoo at that. I do think eventually Cam Ward is going to be amazing. He is not yet. We got to kind of get him there. He's coming from Division II, as is this coach and a lot of this team. But this isn't the week I want to attack that. I'm also not touching Mertz. Not touching either of these passing games, not touching Wazoo at all. The only place I am personally going on this would be for Braylon Allen. He's amazing. I think he's still 18 years old, a sophomore. He was 17 when he started playing last year. He's just a great running back. And at 7,000, he's not too expensive for me compared to some of the other top running backs here. Yeah, short and sweet for me. What about you, Aaron? Any thoughts on Wazoo or Wisconsin?
Yeah, I agree. So Cam Ward, he's going to have a really tough game because Wisconsin's defense is loaded. But that just means we're going to get a great price on him later in the season. Yeah, Allen's amazing. I have a Heisman ticket on him. But he's already one of the best running backs in the country, and that's a great price. Anything under 8K, I'll roster him any day. And that's pretty much it. I don't want to look at the passing, the receiver.
No. Colorado Air Force. I'm going to skip right to it. They're neither passing game here. Colorado triple option. There's one place I do want to look though here. That is interesting to me. But Brad Roberts, he's a little expensive for me for the opportunity he gets at Air Force. Regularly, he's more of a GPP play. Sometimes we'll give him the ball 20 times. Last week, I think he got 8 carries. And it randomly depends on the week. Even with 8 carries, he can give you 20 fantasy points, so he does have upside. Kinnamon is someone that I am interested in as an extreme punt in like 5% of lineups. You got 150 lineups. Last week, he had an 80-yard rush. He had a 71-yard end around. They get him the ball as much as they can. He's a huge play guy, and Colorado has an absolutely atrocious defense. So I do think it's very possible for him to get some of these big plays again this week. So that's kind of where I'm at there. You have any thoughts on this game?
Not really. I'm not. I think it's one you can overlook just with anytime you're involved in a service academy game, you're just losing possessions.
Yep, I agree completely. Iowa State, Iowa. Again, low total. 40.5 point total, extremely low total. Iowa has a 3.5 point favorite. Few places I don't like these passing games. Few places I want to look here. Gavin Williams was out last week. It's probable this week. He was a late scratch last week. If he's a go, Iowa's offense and especially run game looked absolutely awful last week. I think he's going to get 20 carries. They're going to feed him. If he's the starter, he's the starter for a reason because no one else could get it going last week. And then a wide receiver, Xavier Hutchinson is too cheap for his upside. Had a big game last week against FCS school. I think he had a touchdown in each of the first three possessions they had. He had 10 targets last week, and he's going to get a ton of targets this year. He doesn't have Brock Purdy anymore, who will spread the ball around and is more confident. He has Deckers, who is not nearly as confident. I think is going to lean on him a lot more, and I love this price for him. It's not a great matchup, but I still think he's a great price, and I'm okay rostering him in different situations. What are you thinking here?
Yeah, running back. Do we know if Gavin Williams is back yet or no?
That's what we're talking about. Is if we don't know he's supposed to be back, but I want to watch it pregame.
Yeah. Other than that, Laporta, the tight end, is really good. He's the best receiver probably here. Other than that, yeah, it's kind of a block game.
Yeah, there's not a lot. I mean, a 40 total. We go from that to probably second week in a row that Houston is my favorite or one of my favorite games of the week. Has a 65.5 total, and Tech is favored by 3 at Texas Tech. I think there are a ton of places you can go here for DFS. Game stacks in this are great. Started Donovan Smith. He came in last week, had a really good game after Tyler Show got hurt. And starting here, I think he has decent upside. I don't know why he's so expensive as the backup that came in late, but he does have nice upside. Clayton Tune, he did get a lot of these fantasy points. So you do have to take that into account. That being said, it's still decent. I mean, this is a close game. He can air it out. Got another week to work with his receivers, and I think this is a great price for him here. Going over to running back, Taj Brooks had a big game last week. Texas Tech played, I believe, at Murray State. They played in FCS school, so they didn't get anyone great there. One thing I am interested in for a piece of this game at a discount is Roderick Thompson. Taj Brooks had 6 carries for 50 yards, but had 3 touchdowns. Didn't do anything great, like just kind of got in there and was in the right spot at the right time. They might use him for the goal line back, but in those 6 carries, he got 50 yards. 10. Thompson out-carried him, 48 yards, 1 reception. Very similar numbers, just didn't get the touchdown. Basically, you're paying a premium here for the 3 touchdowns that I think were a little bit fluky in that kind of a game. I think had plenty of touchdowns, plenty of red zone carries, and these are both places that I'm interested in looking, but especially Thompson at that discount, just to get a piece of this game into lineups that I don't have the quarterbacks or any of the passing game. Several places I'm looking at this passing game. First of all, Price is supposed to be the number 1 receiver here. Did not have a great first week, but I do think he will be very low owned and could go off here. Might pivot to in some situations. Nathan Dell's too cheap. Still too cheap. Didn't have the best game last week. 24 points. A lot of that was in overtime. But I mean, he is, he has huge upside. Obviously, that was a bad game. Dropped some passes. He's still sitting at 6,000. Not something I really want to pass up on. He might be in my cores this week. I think he's going to be very highly owned, but he's a great cash play, great GPP play. Fuonji, I've looked at that name a lot and couldn't figure out how to pronounce that. He had kind of a fluky week last week. Decent play, but every time he had 5 catches for 101 yards and a touchdown, which got him up there, I believe, 4 catches for 1 and 2 touchdowns. Sorry, but had a fumble as well. State, nothing I'm gonna really lean on. Another guy had 6 targets last week. He's Texas's kind of star freshman. Still down there pretty cheap. Didn't do much with the 6 targets, but he's somebody that I think will break out eventually this year, and is someone I really want to keep an eye on and watch and see kind of what direction that goes. Value player you're going to see all over this week is Jaren Bradley. Had 2 touchdowns, 6 receptions for 110 yards. He was a little bit their depth chart, I believe, got in kind of a little bit later, but still could. I think any of these guys could have a big week. I think this is going to be. They kind of spread their receivers out a little bit, and it's an interesting game for me for sure. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, Smith is an awesome play. They're both awesome. Smith has a 322 pass yard prop, so I mean, everyone's expecting a big game out of both sides. He's a good player. I think they're not losing much with the I never know how to pronounce the Tyler Shogg injury.
Mm-hmm.
They're really not losing much here. Smith can play. I agree with the running backs. I like Thompson a little bit. Especially with not a ton of running back value. That's a pretty nice price. And then receiver, I'm on Dell also. And maybe sprinkling in like Golden or Carter.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And let's go to the last game on this slate, which somehow is a decent game this week. Decent spread, decent total. Virginia goes to Illinois, who's favored by 4.5 points here with a 57-point total. Sitting here, at 6.3K is like last year's one of the top quarterbacks, Brennan Armstrong. It's a new offense, new offensive scheme, but he still aired it out a ton, still threw it a ton, ran 10 times for 100 yards last week, so they're going to get his like, give it all to me, especially against an Illinois team that just gave up over 300 yards to Indiana passing, to Connor Bazelak. I think this is a great spot for Armstrong. He's too cheap. Kind of figuring out the offense still, but I do think he's very much in GPP target, and he is in play for cash as well. Going over to running back, Chase Brown's a core play for me. Like, they don't know how to price him. I don't know why. I don't understand. He's going to touch the ball 40 times before the season's over 1 week, and he's sitting here at 6,400. So, they priced him at 7,900 2 weeks ago. Last week they priced him at 5,400, I believe, and they didn't even track that on his props or on his right here on all of his. And now he's at 6,400. He should be 95% owned in contests. And if he's not, that's their problem. I think you just take him and move on. As far as Virginia, I don't love their running game yet. I kind of want to see it more. Illinois has had some issues with tackling. Virginia week had Paris Jones, who did have 19 carries, and I do think has some upside, but they were playing an FCS team, so I kind of want to see if that's a true way they want to go. He's a decent price though, he's mid, so it is someone you can really look at. Then going to wide receiver, at the top is Isaiah Williams, who oddly leads the country with 24 targets, 14 targets last week in a close game with Indiana. I like it. But if he's going to continue to get that target share for a full PPR over on DraftKings, I'll take it. These Virginia receivers, I kind of want to figure out what they're going to do with them. Last week they didn't do much. You have Wicks, Thompson, who last year were very big play receivers. You still know their upside, Kemp as well. One guy that had some big plays last week and I think has some upside is Lavelle Davis. Came in a little bit later in the game. Got a touchdown, 4 receptions, some decent yardage, and he's just a salary saver, just a pump play that I think you can mix in there if you want to mix in a couple of pump plays. But yeah, that's kind of where I am here. I do think I'll have some shares of this game, and I think it'll be it's weird that there's been some fun Illinois games to watch, but there have been. So yeah, what are you thinking over here, Aaron?
Yeah, I love this game too from a fantasy purpose, and the Armstrong misprice is what's gonna get us a low-owned Bryce Young and some of the other 7 to 8K quarterbacks at low ownership. He's just a stud. DeVito's, I don't know. They don't really ask him to do much. Yeah, I love Chase Brown, and I'll be playing his overs on the different sites. And then receiver, Isaiah Williams is really expensive here. He's a lot more reasonable on FanDuel, but he's the. I'm trying to think of the receiver who had like Josh Downs last year had like a 40% target share. He's basically like the Josh Downs of Illinois. So the price is a little tough here, but there's cheaper plays at other positions that can help you get to him. Hightower scored last week, and then I like Davis a lot. He missed last year. So that's someone I'm going to play a lot, but you can mix and match with Thompson and Kemp here. Kemp's really good for PPR. He had a quiet game, just 3 for 25 last week. So, yeah, the Virginia receivers are going to have some variance here because there's like 4 good ones with experience. So you'll probably want to mix and match them.
I agree. That's it for DraftKings. Real quick, I'm gonna pull up the FanDuel Slate, and we can there. Don't visit FanDuel for college football and DFS is a great there. Lots of birds of they, if you've been to see DFS, very different slate. DraftKings usually with night slate. Especially if you don't have night games. Some really good ones. I think.
Yeah, it's a good slate. I really like the games that they included here.
Team with 4 or 5 or from games, these night games, DraftKings.
Wait.
Anyone you like on this floor?
Who am I looking for?
Just like
in some of the night games, I want to see Anthony Richardson, what he can do again. I don't know. That price I don't like, though. I think it's kind of a overreaction to him being on the national stage. I like Caleb Williams under 10,000. That's a play for me.
all right.
Yeah, that's interesting. That definitely caught my eye at first. That should get low ownership because I think people have a different reputation of Stanford than the reality. Spencer Sanders, I think, could have a nice game. He's expensive, but I don't know. I don't love that price either. I don't know if I want to pay a ceiling price for Spencer Sanders. Let's see who else is on. And then Jerkovich for Boston College, Phil Jerkovich. So their running game is just in shambles. The only bad thing is that Flowers is finally priced up, but that's the team. But at 8,100, I have some interest there because it's all pass game for Boston College until their run game gets fixed. So Jerkovich is 8,100, and then Flowers is 9K, which is it's like ceiling game pricing. So the funny thing is that Flowers and Anaya Smith are like priced right next to each other, and it's both like ceiling game pricing. So yeah, they're like receiver 4 and 5 in terms of pricing. So it's tough. Also, if you look right there, Braden Johnson I'm sure he'll have a better price on DraftKings, but he's the receiver 1 until Bray gets back.
Yep.
And then if you go down a little more, I love Tavion Robinson. He's
had a good game last week.
Yeah, if you remember Wan'Dale Robinson from last year at Kentucky, and now he's going to start for the New York Giants. he broke like Kentucky school records,
Yeah.
and so we're gonna play a lot of him this year. And Isaiah Williams isn't on the night slate; he's on the main slate here, just like he is on DraftKings. I like him a lot too. This is a price I'm comfortable with. Let's see.
No, definitely. Well, then, yeah,
And
I think the rest of them. Go ahead. What were you saying?
Yeah, the Stanford receivers are driving me a little nuts here. So, if you select the USC Stanford game, they're like go up a little, but not too much because they're all bunched together. Tremaine, Humphreys. Wilson, who had 2 touchdowns last week, Eurosec, the tight end, and Higgins, who he had a nice season until he got hurt last year, but it's such a mess here. But I like Mario Williams for USC. He has a lot of familiarity with Caleb, obviously, and this is a nice price for him. Obviously Jordan Addison's going to be expensive every week, but I don't know. It's a fun slate. The night slate's going to be loaded for both sites.
Yeah, for sure. I like it. Like it a lot. And for all of my picks and for all of Aaron's picks, on our cheat sheets for our Domination Station Optimizer, for our chat room that we're always in on Discord, head on over to dfsarmy.com today. Come sign up. Get your VIP membership. NFL starting up. It's almost playoff baseball. We're doing well in the EPL. NASCAR playoffs are going. Yeah, we'd love to see you over there. We'd love to meet you. And yeah, look forward to a good week. Good luck this week, Aaron. I think it's going to be a really fun week of college football. And good luck to all of you out there. We hope you have a great week and a great week too of college football.